So I'm going to talk about, as I always do, something that's well removed from our everyday concerns here at Zoho. I'm going to talk about the rabbit hole of technology itself. So ask yourself, when was the last time you used a dead dinosaur to move a metal container? Or performed controlled explosions inside a chamber? Or maybe this is a giveaway. The last time you used the frictional force between a vulcanized rubber and pulverized rock to aid in motion. Right? Or simpler way to ask is, when was the last time you drove your car? What's the point of all that? This is the point. You don't realize how many magical things are going on. You just get in the car and just simply drive. There's how many layers and layers and layers of technology there is. And how many things that most of us will never understand. Right? So this is actually the famous science fiction writer, Arthur Clarke. This is quote from him. This quote. And this sense of magic, that's what I'm going to talk about a lot today. Let's step back. There are actually two kinds of people, and most of us have come across these people. People who have trouble with technology. This is the obvious people, the people who understand nothing. They're the easy ones to rescue, actually. The really harder ones are these people. The people who think they want to understand everything that goes on. And first set, you start with nothing. That's actually easier. It's easier to teach. But the second part is the really, really, really hard to teach. They get stuck up. They get stuck somewhere. Always. I've seen this again and again and again. In fact, in all my schooling, in my college, my PhD, those years, I observed something. Folks that had the most trouble with getting something done are these. They get stuck somewhere because they won't understand everything that goes on. Why is that so hard? Because to understand everything about even one thing, say your car, you have to understand internal combustion, you have to understand mechanical engineering, you have to understand the physics, you have to understand the chemistry of the fuel, and then maybe if you go back and back, the biology of how that fuel came into being. I mean, the dinosaurs that became that fuel, right? So to understand simply a car, you have to understand all of it, really. Maybe the geology, how do they extract the oil, all of that. So to understand just that one thing, you need to understand everything about everything. Because, as they say, everything is connected. Everything we use, there's so many connections, there's so much connectivity that it's impossible. Which is where that you never really can understand anything about any piece of technology. It's a fundamental, very fundamental truth of the world we live in. And that's where this quote comes from, really. That you need that sense of magic. Even extremely knowledgeable people have to have that sense of magic. So to make progress at all, we have to believe in magic. Some magic or other. Except that we don't call it magic, we just call it black boxes in engineering. Right? You box it up and you say, that's the part I will try not to understand. I don't need to understand in this context. And I've seen that some really smart people have a lot of trouble with that. So let me connect this to our thing here. The creator is an application development platform. Right? You develop apps. What is an app? The act of creating an app is actually programming. You can do it through the GUI, visually, or you can do it through code, writing the deluge code. But one way or the other, you are programming. But what is programming? It's applied computer science. And then you look at computers, that's applied electrical engineering. There are circuits and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Then you go one level lower, electrical engineering, all the semiconductors, that's all applied physics going on. There's science of materials going on there. And then finally, to make sense of any of it, you have math. Layers and layers, equations. All that mathematics to make some sense of that, all of the complexity there. And it's fair to say there's no one alive who understands all of it. It's impossible. All of it. So, and yet I have seen that people get stuck on this. Which is why that whole black boxing something, that magic is needed. At some layer you stop and say this is a black box. I don't need to understand. I don't need to go below this. So that's the rabbit hole of technology that we are all on. So, again to repeat, we must believe in magic to make any progress. To get anything done, you must believe in magic. But then to make progress, everything cannot be just magic. You don't accept. You have to question something. Right? You don't question anything at all, the world is in stasis. You don't move forward. You don't make any motion. You have to question something. But obviously we cannot question everything. All the assumptions that underpin our existence, we cannot question. We have to question something, but cannot question everything. So what we accept and what we question, that defines how we evolve. And this is true in our products. There are some things that we accept, what the industry standard is, maybe, what's a conventional way of doing things. There are some things we question, then we innovate and we change. That is product differentiation for you, right? Those are the parts that you accepted and the parts you question. And then which parts that you formerly accepted, then you question today. That defines your evolution. We are constantly on this track. If you look at, for example, a product like Creator, it started out as a web system. All things happen in a browser. But in this event, you're going to hear a lot about mobile app development too, for example. Which, when Creator actually started in 2006, the iPhone did not exist yet. But today, a lot of our apps, these apps are now, the users are on mobile, and you have to create apps that tie together the web and the mobile. So there was a time then you would think the web is the platform, everything is web. But today the mobile has added. So what you accepted and then what you later questioned, that defined the path of evolution for this technology, and that's true in Creator and it's true in everything. You have to question something, but which ones are you going to question? And when? Maybe we questioned that 4 years ago, that Creator has to go in this new direction. So you need to know to question the right thing, even I would say at the right time, and the flip side of, to flip that around, you have to ask the right questions. But that sounds very serious business, right? Asking the right questions. But it's actually, we figured you really don't want to get too serious. Got to go out and play. So, playfulness, irreverence, that is how we break things apart, we put them back in a different order, we play with a lot of things inside. And discovery, exploration, that is how we work. Or I should say, that is how we actually play in Zoho. That is our motto. So by being playful, we discover ways to ask questions. We find good questions to ask. There's a lot of these what ifs. What if we break this? What if we break this assumption? What if this is not true? So that's how we have evolved as a company in lots of different ways. It's not just in our product. The way we run the company, the way we conduct these events. Like last year, this particular exact event happened in a hotel. And that was the last time we said we don't want it in a hotel. It doesn't have the feel. So we questioned that assumption. Most companies never question that assumption, right? We said we are going to build a facility right in our office. Which is a weird thing to question, right? For most people. We questioned that, and here we are. We have conducted maybe 7, 8 events in the last year, overall across our other divisions, and it's been more and more people are coming. Tells us we are doing something right. So that playfulness, that is how we find questions. And it's the same thing. We invite you to play with our products. That's why all this, from all of these products, I'm not even going to go through all of them. So play with them. And while you play with them, resist the urge to understand all of it, because really it's impossible. There's so many wide range of things we span. It's impossible to understand for one person, but play with them. Just play with them. And when you play with these technology, the act of figuring something out, how something works, you build a model of it, mental model in effect. And that model is necessarily a simplification of reality. It involves some simplifying assumptions you are making to understand something. It's always true. No matter what you're dealing with, you're building a mental model. You have a model of how your car works. Most of the time, that model is okay. You get your job done, you drive. But when it breaks down, maybe your model is no longer adequate. You have to go seek a mechanic who has a better model, a deeper model of how the car works. So, or maybe it's a simple model where you just ran out of gas. You can fix it yourself. But for a deeper problem, you need a more complicated model. But any model is a simplification of reality. The ultimate model is reality itself, which is infinite. Nobody can grasp it. So the trick in all this simplification is you want to simplify without being simplistic. This is important. In app development, you are coming up with models of reality, your business process, your business, how your business functions. You want that model to be simple enough for your users to use, without being simplistic that people just don't find much use for your app. And it's the same thing applies to us. We want something like Zoho Creator and Reports to be simple, but without making it simplistic. That's the balance. And if you look at the act of programming, because this is a developer event, I have to talk about this, and it's intrinsically complex. I'll let you stare at this. This is only about what? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11 lines, including all the braces. That's about 10 lines there. All it's actually doing is this. So, unfortunately, this turns out to be a deep mathematical result in computer science, that even something as simple as this, 10 lines, no automated tool can figure arbitrarily complicated code like this. In other words, to say that this only does this, it's not possible for an automated tool to do this. And this is a deeply known mathematical theorem, that you cannot go from this to this in any automated way. That is the essential difficulty of programming. You can see something has just only 10 lines there. It's not even all that, doesn't look that complicated, but it is actually, they have made it. This was deliberately obfuscated code. There's actually a site where they conduct competitions on who can write the most difficult, impossible code in the shortest lines. They give championships for this. It's picked from that. Why that contest exists is, this kind of code, unfortunately, normal people also sometimes end up writing things like this without intending it. No one else can make any sense out of it, right? All it's doing is this, but. So basically, this even small pieces of code can be really difficult to reason out, and there is no automated way. It's difficult for human beings. It's also difficult for tools. So that is the essential complexity. This is not something, no amount of process, quality checks, controls, nothing can fix this problem. This is fundamental. So the way we handle this kind of challenge in pretty much any engineering discipline, but even more in software, is we say divide and conquer. You divide the problem, and conquer. But, I actually, as I get more experience, this conquer is too overblown a word. I don't think you conquer anything. All you can do is maybe cope. Then as I got more experience, I realized even that is impossible. All you can really hope. Seriously, I don't. So, in engineering jargon, we say we isolate subsystems. That is how we manage complexity. But stripped of all the jargon, really, this is it. Divide the world into black boxes, full of magic, and then hope that the unknown unknowns don't defeat it. There are always going to be unknown unknowns, right? So that is what, when they say this, isolate subsystems to manage complexity, this is really what they mean. This is what is going on underneath. So that is the nature of software, and it's true in any complicated engineering system, but software is by far the most complex of any human effort, because like I showed you, those 10 lines, there's nothing there. Those 10 lines are pretty much impossible for anyone to figure out. So I said magic, hope, play, explore. You thought you were at a technology event. So this is the reality. No one person can ever understand all the black boxes that our system. Why I repeatedly stress is in something like Zoho Creator, you have to have that right mental attitude to be successful developing. Any of the software tools, that same thing is true. That right mindset is important as much as. And it's not just in one product, but and across the entire company, this is true. You split into black boxes and you focus on one box at a time. And this is actually an interesting Hollywood scriptwriter. This William Goldman is one of the most famous scriptwriters. He said, nobody knows nothing in Hollywood. Like no one knows the formula for a successful movie. There's no such formula. Most surprising things happen, right? Movies that are big budget failures, disasters, and then there are surprise hits. There are no bankable stars. That's the Hollywood dictum. But to me, that summarizes pretty much a lot of fields. And this is something that I've been aware of for a long time. In fact, understanding that is liberating. That really nobody knows nothing. So it lets you punch way above your weight. Once you figure that out, that you can actually punch way above your weight. That is the secret. We actually punch way above our weight in Zoho. In fact, I do want to introduce you a person, Nandini. Come over. See, she punches way above her weight, but actually in many ways, more ways than one. She's from our Zoho University program. She's been with us how long now, Nandini?
6 years.
6 years. She joined at the age of 18. 17. Wow, even younger. Now she's 23, all of 23. She leads the team that actually does the Deluge script execution environment. That is punching way above your weight at 23, at the age of 23. The trick is she got started at 17. So she's got full 6 years in. So when your app runs, it's running her code. That entire execution is actually going through that code that she wrote. So, thank you. She will have presentations. That's something that is special about Zoho. We bring in the real people who do the work to these events. They are the ones writing the code. They are the ones managing the systems. We want to do that because we want the customers to meet the people behind all of this, what we do. And we don't try to be very slick in our presentation. We try to do a good job, but we actually want you to hear from the people who did it. We try to make it as understandable as possible, but we do want you to experience the real people behind it. And as I said, the trick is once you understand that principle, that really in a fundamental level, We're all at a baseline of, so many things we will never know. That is a liberating thought and lets you punch way above your weight. So let me wrap up. When you discover the right questions to ask, you reach that balance of power and simplicity. You need that. As I said, you want to simplify without making it simplistic. That balance of power and simplicity. And the balance of what I call improvement and refinement. It's a whole topic. My next keynote will be on this topic, I promise. But improvement to me is measurable. Refinement is unmeasurable. You want that balance. There are things you can measure and lots of things you cannot measure. And engineering informed by aesthetics. There is a quality sense, an aesthetic sense that informs your engineering technology decisions. So now let me bring it down to our problem here. Balance of visual development and scripting. That is one of the balances we seek in Creator. And in analytics, the balance of query creation and visualization. We want to give you the full query power in something like Zoho reports, and we also want to give you beautiful ways to visualize that. So let me wrap it up. These are all, like I talked about, questions, magic, and hope, and black boxes, and balance, and that fun-seeking playfulness. That is Zoho. That is all our applications for you. Thank you.